The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Pennsylvania High School Football Report. I am Brian Linder. I'm here with Dan Sostek and Eric Epler. Dan, let them hear your voice real quick.
Hola.
Let them hear your voice.
Hello.
So now when you guys hear them talk, you'll know who they are, which if you listen to our podcast, you should know who they are. We're coming to you on a big day. It's Wednesday, February 21st. This podcast usually comes out on a Friday during the off season. And it's a big day. Epler was out at, I believe, Cumberland Valley High School today. We had the announcement of the Big 33 roster. Ep, you were there?
Yeah.
Tell us about the big news coming out of it.
Well, he did a nice job. Mike Reagan, obviously our rep, had some things to say, and they talked about, obviously, the Buddies program for the Big 33 is massive. Some of the events that they have planned for Memorial Day weekend this year, the game will be on the Sunday, May 26th, 7 p.m. at Chapman Field at Cumberland Valley. So that's a little bit of a change. Obviously, CV is the new venue for the Big 33, who had called Hershey Park Stadium home for umpteen years, and then Central Dauphin had it for a few years. Bishop McDevitt hosted last year, and now Cumberland Valley, which of course you guys know, owns the PIAA championships for the next 3 years. This one was their first one in December. So lots going on. I thought what was a nice touch. Obviously, we had some local guys there. I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag before they did, so I just sort of talked to the guys afterwards. But they took everybody outside about half hour into the press conference, and they played the release video, the unveil, on the Jumbotron at Chapman Field, which I thought was really kind of cool. So a good day overall. Mid-Penn, I think, has 8 guys. Starting, of course, with the, I believe I think we're under contract now to call him simply the PA Passing King, and that's Alex Irby, to kind of headline the list of Mid-Penn guys. So all in all, good day, about an hour and a half for presser and unveil and interviews and all that stuff. So, we'll be set to go.
Well, and for people who don't know, I mean, when they put this roster together, there are a few things. For a player to be on the roster, you have to be a member of the Coaches Association, and then they meet and put everything together. And we don't really know how they do that. We don't know all the specifics. Obviously, we're not in those meetings when they come up with it. But we'll do a quick little position rundown. You mentioned Alex Irby's there at quarterback. Hayden Johnson is the other quarterback from Manheim Township. I still don't. Did he throw an interception? He threw an interception, I guess, in the playoff District 3 title. Didn't throw one?
49 TDs.
I mean, he had a heck of a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hayden Johnson from Manheim Township. I believe he's a Lehigh guy. Like the quarterbacks a lot. I mean, there are other quarterbacks out there who maybe you could have considered, like a Samaj Jones, people like that. But again, you don't know what his situation is with college. That's another factor that goes into selecting these rosters. Will these guys be around on May the 26th? Which is why, Epler, I always say, I come from South Carolina. They played a Shrine Bowl in December. Everybody tells me it's the weather. We played the state championships in December. I say put it all right there in the middle. Put this game in the middle and have a big football festival. We can talk about that some more at the end. But
yeah.
But you got 2 good quarterbacks here. I like this quarterback group.
Yep. And I think too, everybody, if there is any slight, or any slight against Alex Irby, it's the fact that he's single A. That Steel High plays single A, right? So to give him a chance, and obviously, the United States Naval Academy didn't care about that because that's where he's heading. But to see Alex Irby kind of go against now, this game's going to be a lot faster than what he's seen. It's not like Steel High hasn't played good competition throughout his 4 years, and this kid has grown from a promising freshman starter to just an unbelievable record-setting quarterback at Steel High. I mean, you don't win 3 titles out of 4 years and you're not good. right? But I still think that's an interesting thing to watch, on how he's going to perform in this game. And he's got an unbelievable. We'll get to the wide receiving core, but he has an unbelievable set of wide receivers in this game too. Again, you mentioned it briefly, Brian. A lot can happen between now and then. There will be players that opt out for various reasons. So there will be some shuffling of this lineup before we get to the game. But right now, that's one of the things I'm most excited to see is Alex Irby throwing to this unbelievable set of wideouts.
The running back position, guys, I think is very interesting. First of all, you only have two running backs on the roster. Eric Sanchez, who's a good player, heck of a player, but he was really in a three-way split at St. Joe's Prep
Yep.
with some other, guys who are, I think one of them's going to Towson and the other one is Isaiah West, who's got offers from everybody. And then Sean Roberts, who's a really good player for Upper Dublin, but when I think of him more as like an edge defensive end linebacker guy. Those are only two running backs on the roster right now. I feel like you might need another running back in this game, or what? I don't know, exactly, where the rest of the running backs have come from.
Yeah, because it's not like the athlete on the roster is really a running back per se.
Right.
He's a good player, really good player. Kyron Boyd I saw him once this year and was kind of blown away by him. But yeah, I don't see too many guys you could line up as like an emergency running back.
I'm not knocking these kids. Because I think they're both heck, great ball players. I think I don't think this is like Sean's natural position. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not the end all be all of evaluation. But one of the more interesting running back situations I've seen on a Big 33 team since I've been in Pennsylvania.
What's notable too is there's a percentage split that coaches have to make. I believe it's probably right around 65-35 now, 70-30 pass to run. So you do need running backs, and I think if you're trying to find the other guy, it may be Tasir Denmark. It may be the Penn State recruit who most of the guys didn't get to see in the postseason. Obviously, he was ineligible after the transfer. But you've seen him, Brian. You've seen him, Dan. I mean, he is lightning fast. I mean,
Yeah.
lightning fast, and he's not a lanky sort of player. He is broad shouldered. He's solid. He produces. Got a lot of muscle. So I think a guy like that you could see in a couple jet sweeps and things like that to kind of bolster the run game.
Yeah, because I don't see a lot of other guys who really, unless I'm missing somebody here that on this roster who actually took handoffs. So
Yep.
Didn't Cam Lindsey take a couple?
He did.
he
Yeah.
did, so tight ends, Aiden Black going to Stanford. The last I checked, from Delaware Valley. Nick Sloggett, who was here at Bishop McDevitt, who he could end up at defensive end too at East Carolina. Didn't have a ton of catches. I think no knock on Jeff Wachter over at Bishop McDevitt. We thought he was probably a little underutilized. His
Yes.
size and athleticism at tight end for Bishop McDevitt. It's a good group.
Well, they spent so much time, at least at McDevitt, trying to get that run game going. And that's where Slogic was really, really paramount in the last 6 weeks of their season. I mean, he's a tremendous blocker. He's a big body kid. But I agree, underutilized in the passing game, no doubt about it. He's very athletic, too. Obviously, he's going to try to play baseball and football at the next level. So you got to be very athletic and very good with your hands to do both of those. So, yeah, I'm curious to see if they will use him in the passing game or like he's been used most of this last season, just strictly as sort of a run blocker.
Wide receiver group, real quick. And Dan, don't be so quiet over there, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Ep's just kind of stealing everything. There's not much more to say. Ep, say it like I do agree that this is a like tight end is kind of a position in high school that you don't always get a high like two Division I players at tight end, right? Because that's a position a lot of kids move to later on in their college careers. Kind of move from wide receiver to tight end, linebacker to tight end, quarterback to tight end. So to have two D1 guys, I mean, Stanford's about as good of a tight end school as you can get to. With guys, Zach Ertz and Senator Cory Booker also played tight end at Stanford. But yeah, it's a real good group there.
We'll get to the defensive ends in a little bit, but those two guys also may be the best two defensive ends on the team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would be hard to beat them. But the wide receiver group's really good. David Washington Jr. from St. Joe's Prep, Aaron Enterline from Manheim Central, Tyser Denmark from MOTEP, Landon Kennel from Manheim Township. All really good players. If you're looking for some guys who maybe aren't there, you think maybe Rico Scott, but we don't know what he did or didn't want to do, or what his situation is with going to Alabama as far as when he's checking in
I was
down there.
asking last night at the Central Dauphin basketball game. He was there with Stone Saunders.
Yeah, and also you think about Rel Caesar Jr., who was easily the state's most prolific receiver, and also, um, you know, had 7 or 8 interceptions, as a defensive back, and he's not on the team, but it's really hard to fault this group too, because on talent, it's a really good group.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Yeah, I think I've said it before, but I think David Washington's a lot better than his stat line shows, and I think that's just the St. Joe's Prep thing, right? That you have so many mouths to feed. No one's going to put up the 2,000-yard season for them, but he's really impressive. Aaron Enterline just has been one of the most consistent wide receivers the last few years in District 3. You already talked about Denmark, and then Landon Kennel. I mean, the the stat line he put up this year, I think the only person that at least locally that could really rival it is Rel Caesar at Steel High. He put up, I think he had 18 to 20 touchdown catches this year. It's a real solid group with a lot of wide receivers with a bunch of different skill sets.
Kyron Boyd's the athlete. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as Rel Caesar goes, yeah, I thought he had a real chance to make it as an athlete in this, just because. I mean, for nothing else, we're going to talk about the D-backs here in a second and the wideouts. These are really tremendous crews that were selected. But so even if you're going to put Rel as an athlete, as a return guy, how exciting he was in return game, and to get him on the field. So I thought he had a real shot to get to be an athlete here. But obviously, Karen Boyd is tremendous as well too. And it looks like they only named one athlete to the squad.
And I heard some buzz about Boyd, that he's been a guy that at camps has really, really,
Yeah.
really impressed me. I think there's been buzz about his 40 times and everything. So and seeing him just in that one game against Harrisburg, that kid is a capital A athlete. Like it's the correct position. You might not know necessarily where to put him. I'm not sure. I mean, Ep was there for this game. I'm not sure if he'll be the best Boyd to ever play in the Big 33 game. There's a pretty big bar to.
That was the greatest. Tyler Boyd's effort in that game, 5 TDs, 3 different ways. That was the best performance I've ever seen in a Big 33 game, and I've probably covered the last, I don't know, 24, 25 of them. And it was amazing, amazing. Yeah.
Offensive line group, real quick. Zach Tomasovich from Penn Trafford, Adam Abaraya from Downingtown East. Really good player. I think isn't he going to Pitt, Dan?
He's a pick commit.
Yeah. Colin Gatter from Central Bucks South, Evan Bushon from Central Dauphin, Anthony Robsock from Central Dauphin, Luke Elor from Spring Ford, and Michael Hershey from Spring Grove. Really good group. Tomasovich has been doing it since he was a freshman. Huge guy. I think he's going to Army. I think he was underrated. We know the Central Dauphin guys are pretty darn good. And Michael Hershey, Spring Grove wasn't very good, but I think he was very good. He's going to Maryland. Any thoughts on the offensive line group?
Yeah, I like Michael Hershey a lot. I think we've kind of talked about it behind the scenes, that he's a kid that, when you turn on his huddle film, he's pretty nasty. Those 2 Central Dauphin kids have been fun to watch the last few years. Kind of, burst onto the scene in recruiting wise last year, and kind of made you kind of realize, oh wow, these guys really do have high D1 level frames. Definitely a big group on the offensive line.
Brian, I was going to mention Tomasovich, obviously as being just an animal who came up through the ranks really, really quickly. Abaraz, an all-state kid, and I got a chance to talk to Bouchong and Rob Sock a little bit today, and they were saying uh, Anthony said to get back into the weight room and get ready for. I'm like, it looks like they never left the weight room, man. I mean, they look bigger than I saw them 4 months ago. So they're definitely prepared for the next level. So yeah, I would definitely run behind those two guys. And of course, Dan mentioned Hershey is a kid I really really like too. He's kind of a freakish sort of attitude guy. You know what I mean? He never sort of turns it off, and that's the guys you want up front.
Your defensive lineman group, Jasir Whittington from Imhotep Charter. I think we all love him. Probably a little bit of an undersized in most people's book, 6'1", 6'2". Defensive tackle is going to Pitt, who's just an absolute monster. I mean, he really could be like an Aaron Donald type before it's all done, I think. Not Aaron Donald, he's so great, but sort of like him in the build and stuff. Ivan Bailey Green from St. Joe's Prep. David Johnson from Imhotep is another sort of undersized defensive tackle who's a really good player. Caden Singleton from Cannon McMillan, good edge guy. I think he's going to Dell. Eli Rodriguez from Manheim Township, and then Tamir Williams from Susquehanna Township. He's a guy who really, really, really flew under the radar for us here. PennLive, he's in our backyard, and he was a really under the radar kid for us here. Any thoughts here, guys, on this group?
I was just gonna say Rodriguez is probably gonna be the smallest guy up front, but I don't in terms of power, he's pretty damn good. He's he's packed in the I don't know 5'8", 5'9", but they probably list him as 5'11". I don't know what he is, but he did a tremendous job for the Streaks this year. Obviously made it to the District 3 final 6A with Johnson leading the way there, the QB. So I'm looking forward to watching him play. And you mentioned Whittington. It wasn't too long ago. Whittington was getting a lot of votes for potentially Player of the Year in 5A. And we all saw what he did in that championship game. Just sort of dominated. And his trunk is unbelievable, man. He gets low. He's nasty. He's not the tallest guy, but he's going to be a big, big matchup problem for anybody, not just now, but at the next level.
He moves really, really well. He was a linebacker 3 years ago. And like I said, we were actually, when we did our rankings, we were literally the first people to put him as a defensive lineman. And I know that because he inboxed me and said, "Hey, why are you guys putting me as a defensive lineman?" And I said, "I think that's where you're going to play." He's like, "Well, coach had me at linebacker last year." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, just ask coach what he thinks." And here he is. And he is a monster, man. He gets after it.
Yep.
Linebackers, guys, real quick. Nick McGlynn, Cameron Lindsay, Nick McGlynn from St. Joe's Prep, Cameron Lindsay from Aliquippa, Gino Calgaro from Cannon McMillan, and Evan Johnson from Pine Richland. Really, really athletic group.
Yeah. I mean, Ep and I have talked a lot about Cam Lindsay kind of being one of our favorite guys from out of the area, and not because he's a pick of it. It's the way he plays football. He's kind of an old school guy, which is a lot. You can kind of say about a lot of the Quip guys, right? They're kind of forged with that 80s 90s style of football. But he kind of has a mix of that where he's kind of old school, but he's also really modern linebacker where he can drop back in coverage, he can blitz you. He's a really good athlete. So yeah, he's a guy that I know Ep's been a big fan of for a while. We saw it a few years ago in the state championship game with the pick six early on in that game, and he's just been an awesome player for his entire career.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Lindsay shows up in Pitt's lineup next year. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that kid's going to deserve playing time at some place. I mean, probably outside linebacker maybe because it's a little bit less nuanced. It's a little bit more getting after it. Inside linebackers are key, calling the defense, things like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if Lindsay's playing a significant role for Pitt by midseason too. Um, Nick McGlynn, it's funny because every time I sort of watch St. Joe's Prep, McGlynn's guy got overshadowed because you're lining up next to Anthony Sacca. But he's a really good instinctual inside linebacker that I found myself watching a lot every time I got a chance to look at St. Joe's Prep. So that's a really quality crew at LB. Really quality.
Yep.
I think he's going to one of the service academies too, and I'll say Evan Johnson's a kid too. A lot of people might not know his name from Pine Richland. Watched a ton of his film in the preseason. We were trying to do the rankings and stuff. I got to dive back into that stuff. It takes us forever. But he's a 6'1", about 190-pound kid. You know, probably a little lean, but he's really, really athletic. It'll be interesting where he ends up. I don't know what he did with college here, but he's kind of under the radar, athletic type guy who fits in. Like I said, this is a really kind of athletic group. I think that can fly around on you. Defensive backs, your safeties: Jason Cross from Bishop Canavan, Nevin Hopkins from Bishop McDevitt, Amir Haskett from Coatesville. Love all three of them. Haskett and his teammate there, and all of a sudden his name's escaping me at Coatesville. They got another really good DB out there I really like. I think are really excellent players, but three really good, really, really good. I think Jason Cross was probably the best safety in the state.
He's awesome. We got to see him last year play against Steel High. I think that was before he had a ton of offers. He maybe had a couple, but he completely jumped just from the press box. He moved like a Division I player. And then I'm really happy Nevin Hopkins made this because I think he gets overlooked a lot in that McDevitt defense. And the McDevitt defense as a whole, when you have a quarterback like Stone Saunders, you have wide receivers like Rico Scott, Tyshawn Russell, you have running backs like Marquise Williams, the defense is just naturally going to get overlooked. But that unit has been so good for the last 2 years. And Nevin Hopkins returned from injury a couple years ago in that lineup at safety. He's just a bullet. He's one of the better run stopping defensive backs in the area and probably in the state. He's just an awesome player to watch. So really cool he made it. I honestly thought that his recruitment would be, even a little more expansive than it was, but glad he made it to the Big 33.
Has he picked a school yet?
I don't think so.
This one, you know what? We need to circle back with our 2024 guys here, especially in Central PA, and just see who's still looking for schools and maybe do an update on them. But he's a really good player.
Yeah.
So, anything on the safeties before we move
I
on?
I was going to say basically the same thing Dan said about Nevin Hopkins. For a long time there, it was sort of like, where do we put this guy because he's so athletic, and he found obviously he always had a home there in the secondary. Also played wide out at times, was sort of the third option. We know McDevitt's had just a run of great receivers here over the last 3-4 years. So he never really gained a lot of traction in that part of it. He was injured for a time. So he had a sort of a staggered career at McDevitt. But when he's been able to play and sort of hold his own position, he's been outstanding. And like Dan said, those guys get overshadowed because of that offense, that high-powered offense, and guys going, and your QB committing to Kentucky and your wideout committing to, Alabama. Their wideout last year's at South Carolina making an impact. So, all those things you tend to overshadow the defensive guys. And quite frankly, Hopkins is a kid who really, really played hard and just had some bad breaks early in his career. So for him to make this squad, I think is well deserved. It's great for
Your corners right now on this list, if they all end up in the game, are all college corners. Emilio Agard from St. Joe's Prep, who's a Wisconsin signee. Ken Wosley Jr. from Imhotep, who's a Penn State kid. Brandon Banks from Aliquippa, I think, is going to Yale, which is really freaking impressive. And Jair Rollison from Bishop McDevitt, who I know we all love. He was banged up a little bit this year. He tried to play through it, came back. Has really fun film, really good cover guy, going to Kent State. Those are your corners. If you keep them all to the game, you got a really good foursome of cornerbacks.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can make an argument this might be the best position group on the team. It's there are a couple of them, but especially you have two Big Ten cornerbacks right there, and then you back them up with Yale commit, and Ivy League football is no joke. They get players in the NFL all the time, and then Jair, who we all know type of caliber player he is, just a really good group.
Yeah, Wosley to me obviously is it's just the game he played in the championship was just phenomenal. I mean, he stood out. I don't know, he might have been in on 6 plays, but those 6 plays were like electric on how he just closed on the football and his positioning and all that. Obviously Agard's been a great cornerback for a long time, and then you mix in Banks and Rollison. Um, and I don't know, man. It's either this or the wideout group. I think as far as just being the marquee group in this on this team, but this is an impressive. These 4 guys have all been impressive, and man, I don't wish it against Maryland. I'll tell you what, it's a tough assignment to throw against these guys.
Your specialist kicker punter, Bryson Costa from Wimber, Connor Poole from Williamsport, long snapper Gino Paghetti from State College. That is your big 33 team. Tom Gravish, hope I'm pronouncing that right, or Gravish, Coach
Yep.
Gravish from Jersey Shore is your head coach. I mean, obviously, when teams come out, you see a lot of people. This person should have made it. That person should have made it. It's hard again for us in the media too because we're not in the meetings and we don't know the situations. Again, when the game is played, like I said, I wish personally the game would be played in December. Doesn't matter what I want really, but I'm just saying it would make more sense. Kids get hurt; they got more time to recover for college. There's more to gain possibly from playing in December. And when we play in May, we don't know. Some of these guys are going to big schools. Their colleges might tell them, you know what, just come on to school. We don't want you to get hurt in this game. So the roster will change some. I think you were saying today, you usually see, what'd you say, 30, 40% turnover, you think, by the time the
Yeah,
game
I
comes?
think that's about right. We typically have like 8 to 10 reshuffled, kids reshuffling in. I do know that they're trying to release the East West games, which are the, sister all star games to this, the big school and small school version. I believe they're going to try to release those rosters on Friday. So anybody opts out of the Big 33, then guys will get bumped up. Those position type guys will get bumped up from typically the big school, East West game to kind of fill in. But yeah, I mean, it's you're going to have some college coaches, DMing you, and especially if you're signed, which most of these guys are by now. Trying to get them to maybe it's when May comes around, that's awful close to college football season. So
Mhm.
some guys will back out for that. It might be an injury, something like that, or but there will be some shuffling to this roster. But right now, as far as on paper, I mean, this is a really impressive group. Um, and yeah, you're always gonna, coaches. I talked to a couple coaches today too. They're already getting messages on wasn't this kid picked? Why wasn't that kid picked? All we can tell, our audience is the fact that coaches break off in groups and evaluate film, make their lists, and then just start at the top and go from there. So, um, yeah, so it's interesting how it is, and of course, you mentioned too, Brian. Your program has to be a member of Pennsylvania State Football Coaches Association, and right now, I'm guessing this number 560 some high schools play football in Pennsylvania, and it's probably at a 70%, 75% rate that of programs that are members. So you're still talking 100 some schools that are not. So some of the players that you thought might be shoe-ins for this, obviously were not eligible by the rules.
That is one thing, Coaches Association. I get it.
Yeah.
You guys are trying to build your Coaches Association. You want an incentive for get in there. But, look, eh, what if we got a Micah Parsons or we got a DeAndre Swift or, one of these kids who's the top guy in the state and his coach isn't in the coach association. He wants to be in what's supposed to be our premier all-star game. Are you going to tell him no, because his coach didn't pay $150? Coach association, we should not be punishing kids because an adult didn't pay $150. We need to there has to be a fix for that. If that's the case, um, if they're not picking kids, because their coach isn't in the coaches, there
Well,
needs
that's
to be a
that's yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's the rub, isn't it? I mean, it's not the kid's responsibility, uh, you know, to pay the money, whatever the dues are, a year to be part of the organization. So because the school and the program chooses not to be involved with that organization, the kids are the ones suffering, especially like you said, if there's a marquee player or two that you would think would definitely at least be in the running
Mhm.
to be evaluated for a spot too. So yeah, I would like to see that sort of change, or at least bring the dues down, or I don't know, like they do with credit cards and give you a
I
better deal for new customers, something like that, a code. But
I don't know that
something to get it in.
I don't know that the charge is a ton. I just think there are probably some people who, for whatever reason, they don't join. Maybe they're just lazy. Look, let's be honest. There's a lot of coaches out there doing the right things, and there's a lot of coaches who were just there. And what happens then? When we're punishing the kid who's done all the right things. That's unfortunate. Now, none of that's to knock these kids on this team. Happy
Right,
for all of them. We're just talking about some things around the periphery, like you're wondering why this kid didn't make it or that kid didn't make it. There's a lot of, and it's hard for us sort of to critique it in the media too, because there is a lot of extenuating circumstances.
yes,
Um, you would think a Rico Scott would be on this team, but Alabama might have told him not to play, and there might be other schools where their kids have signed, and their coach said, "We don't want you playing in a May All Star game,"
right.
um, or they're already going to be at school,
Well, that's the
or
thing we talked about. Briefly today, I was talking with a coach about Penn State's recruiting class. I mean, hell, I'm going to guess it's 25 kids, 23, 20 some kids, and 80% of the kids are already enrolled. They're already
yeah.
enrolled in school, and so a guy like Cooper Cousins, is not it would certainly be on this team, but he's already there at Penn State. So yeah, there's a lot of circumstances surrounding why some of the kids don't get selected.
Yeah, so it makes it hard for us as journalists too to critique it. Which again, when I say critique it, we really do try to be very respectful to the kids who didn't make it, because there's not a bad player on this team overall. It's a good roster build. It's a good, I think, all star team um, to put out there. And again, we know there will probably be some changes coming. So if you're one of these people who are online today, yelling at the big 33 because you didn't make it, they might be calling you in 2 or 3 weeks. So you might want to tone it down a little bit. It's not
Right,
necessarily over.
right.
So Dan, anything else?
No, I mean, I am excited to see again what the roster look like. There's going to be some changes, but if we get this group, I'm definitely excited to see those. Uh, you know, I'm really excited to see secondary. I think that secondary is going to be special, and I think Alex Irby and Hayden Johnson have some fun toys to throw to as well.
I'm excited to see Alex and Hayden maybe throw it around a little bit, because I think both of those guys are. I think Lehigh's getting a good quarterback. I think Navy's getting a really good quarterback too. Guys who are winners in high school and really good players. Now we get to see them, maybe throw it to some really good receivers in a big game, get some good talent. Could be a fun game to watch. So
Yeah.
that's the big 33, folks. Anything else going on this week? What do we got? I sent Epler, I sent Dan a Phil Jerkovic autograph
Nice,
card.
nice. Oh yeah, one of
We're
what?
one of 90 of 99, but
That's only 99.
one of
So
one in our hearts.
this
That's
is kind
pretty
of
good.
like the neat thing with like the NIL movements and stuff that I think is really neat, because like probably when we were growing up, if you would ever imagine you would have like been on your own baseball card, that would have been like the biggest thing in the world, right? That'd have been the coolest thing in the world.
Oh,
Now, I mean,
absolutely.
Chance Westry has autographed, Bowman hoops cards out there from college. You
Yep.
know, that's neat. So I
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
when Micah made I remember when Micah made the All American game, and I texted Terrence because the All American game did that set. And this was actually before NIL, and they had his autograph cards in there. Um, but it's super neat. You get a lot of kids who have been in this area who already have kind of autograph cards and different cards out there. So I'll let Dan know that his guy Blake Henson has a few cards out there already.
Yeah, he had a tough one last night, but we'll move on.
Nice.
What else, guys? Is that it for this week?
Just some hoops, some wrestling, and some swimming and diving and
Kevin Brown. Let's drop him a little line real quick. Kevin Brown. What were we talking? He just won. Didn't he just win a regional or district title?
sectional.
Sectional.
Yeah,
You know, Harrisburg offensive lineman, guys. You didn't seen him sophomore, big time college recruit. And he's killing guys in wrestling. He's either going to go to the UFC or the NFL. Is my
he
prediction.
could be WWE. He's got the WWE look too. I feel like too. I mean, I guess you can do both. So, yeah,
WWE's not that gig.
yeah. Jared Porter also came 5th in his sectional as well. CD East running back. Cool that these guys, who have legitimate high level college football interest, are still risking it, because I think as anyone who's covered wrestling know, you get injuries in wrestling that aren't necessarily like broken bones or things like that. You get like back problems, you get ligament issues. So these guys toughen it out to better. I know Kevin Brown played basketball last year too, so not even sure how long he's been wrestling, but
I would not want to go in the post with him. But
no,
Jared Porter's a good one. You bring up CDs, guys. Go watch that kid. He's super athletic. He's a wrestler. I think outside of Messiah Mickens, and probably after Messiah got banged up, he might have been the best, most talented running back in the mid pen. Bryce Sterrett's had a really good year for Cumberland Valley, but I'm just talking about as far as
no running back tore up that Harrisburg defense like Jared Porter did.
yeah, great kid, and he's getting some offers. We really need to catch back up with him because there's a couple of them. We'd like to report all the offers we see, but really, we talked about this in another podcast. We just had such a this was a different year where like we come right up against it for the February 8th date, and it was like there were like 100 offers and commitments that happened like in 4 days. It was like we couldn't keep up with all of it. And I know he's next year, he's a 2025 kid, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And he's got a handful of nice offers. Last thing I'll mention, guys, I will give us all credit. I think I pitched it out there, but I think you all kind of agreed. We told you guys Michael Parsons was going to go win that MVP award in the NBA Celebrity All-Star game. We told you guys he was going to play harder than any player all weekend, even in the NBA game, and he did, guys. 37 points, 16 rebounds. Come on.
He beat out the high jumper who doesn't know how to play basketball, so good for him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you're playing against
Well, Ron Artest was in the game, but I don't think Ron Artest was going all out.
Hey, did you see him hook CJ Stroud and go to the rim on him, though? He was dunking.
Well, CJ Stroud was slamming the mid pen on his podcast, saying when Micah said that he was dominating. Well, first off, Micah Parsons claimed he averaged 20 and 20 at Harrisburg High School. I'm not sure if we can confirm those numbers or not, but CJ Stroud said that was in Harrisburg. So
he went to the rim on CJ Stroud, though.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope Micah could get to the rim on CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud's a big dude, though.
He's a big dude, but he's a quarterback versus a defensive end. I would hope the defensive end could get to the rim.
We knew Micah was going to bring the heat. I will say this: now he's flirting again with coming back home and playing in the Brotherhood League for a game or two, which I hope we can find out and sneak over there and maybe get some kind of coverage of it. But I'll say this: if anybody's listening, Micah, if Micah's family listens to this, if you're going to do that, just talk to Harrisburg or somebody, put it in the gym, do it for charity.
Well,
play the game.
He joined some real legends who have won Celebrity All-Star Game MVP, including Michael Rappaport, Kevin Hart 4 times, and Arcade Fire's Win Butler. So a bunch of DK Metcalf won last year too. So
well, hey, now look, that guy's a freak.
Yeah.
We knew Micah was going to bring it, though. We told you guys Micah was going to play harder, and he did. And he got congrats to him. The disappointment, I think, for all of us is that we, and by no means being that this is a high school football report podcast, are we condoning this, but having predicted it and been fairly certain of it, we probably should have found a line somewhere at a sports book. I'm sure this was offered somewhere. We probably could have made a lot of money, and we didn't. So that's a failure on our part.
Yeah.
Guys,
Who's failing in this is Micah's agent, because you can't talk him out of stop playing basketball.
hey, but you know what? It pumped up his he didn't get hurt, so it pumped up his if he got hurt, it was a disaster. But now
Process does not equal result.
That's my point.
The celebrity.
I mean, if you're his agent, you got to be calling him 24/7.
And he may or may not have taken out Stephen A. Smith, Epler.
Micah, you better. Well, that's a good move then. But you can't be playing basketball. You just can't. It may be it may be some big contract coming up. You got to stop.
Micah's Bo Jackson. He's going to do everything.
I'm waiting for his 3-on-3 team for the Olympics in 2028. That's what I'm waiting for.
We will dominate. Guys, I think we got a podcast. We got a lot still to talk about in the coming weeks. Talk to a lot of people. We'll come on as guests. We'll get some good guests back on here. We need to talk about some 2025 guys, stuff like that. But I think we got a podcast for this week, Big 33 game. Again, guys, a lot goes into this. It's kind of hard to critique it because there's a lot of extenuating factors with each player, each selection. And stay up with Epler on PennLive.com because he'll definitely update you guys if there are changes to the roster when those come. And also, he'll be having that East-West roster when it comes out. Ep, tell them how to find you on social media.
At 3Jacker on X.
Dan, tell them how to find you on social media.
Dan_Sostek on X, Twitter.
And I am at Sports by B Linder on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Again, check out PennLive.com for all of our coverage. A lot of playoff basketball, a lot of wrestling right now going on, a lot of swimming. Till next week, see you guys later.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.